Let's go ahead and go through InDesign Classroom in a Book, Chapter 1, which is about introducing the workspace. Your first step, of course, is to go to Canvas, go to InDesign, Classroom in a Book, Lesson 1, and get the zipped file. Save that zip file to your USB drive or your flash drive, put it in your InDesign Classroom in a Book file, and push Save. That's going to go ahead and download that for us. As soon as it downloads, we'll have to go into our flash drive. Let's see, now we've got the zipped file, Lesson 1, and I need to go ahead and extract that. So extract all. Yes, I want to save it in this area, and hit extract. This is a relatively small file, so we don't have to worry too much about it. I'm not going to follow the book step by step. I do want you to go through all those steps. I just want to highlight parts of the workspace for you. So let's go ahead and double click start.indd, which will give us the document that we're going to be playing with as we explore the workspace today. This one does not have a lot of things you'll actually do, but I do want you to do it and package it in the end and submit it so you get in that practice of how to create those packaged files and turning them in. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a peek at this workspace. One of the first things the book is going to ask you to do is save this document as something else. So we go up here to our menu bar and we go to File and Save As, so we can change the name. Instead of 01 Start, I want first initial, last name, InDesign, CIAB, Classroom in a Book, Chapter 1. That way when you all turn them in, I don't get 10,000 of them called Classroom in a Book, Chapter 1. Alright, I want to go ahead and save it in that Chapter 1 folder and push Save. Now you'll notice that we didn't have a whole bunch of links in this one because these are called embedded pictures, images. They are not linked. If this had been a bigger document, you definitely would have to have them linked instead. But in order to avoid that error problem that we talked about, they embedded this for us. Alright, so one of the first things we can do is change what does the workspace look like. How do we do that? We can go to Window and we can go to Workspace. Let's check out a couple of them. If we go to Window, Workspace, and choose Book, notice how I get a lot of different things that pop up. I get indexes, I get conditional text, I get different types of panels that pop up usually when you're creating a book. Let's go to Typography. And we get a whole bunch of other things that pop up. Paragraph style. So if you're dealing primarily with a lot of text, all those panels that would pop up for those. These come in really, really handy so you're not having to go through and upload and change and personalize your panels all the time using these presets. You can customize them. It is in the book. We're not going to go over it right this second. For Window, let's go Workspace and let's go Advanced. And that's going to pop up this workspace for us. Let's go ahead and talk about what we have. This very top row where we have File, Edit, Layout, that is your menu bar. Below that, on a Mac, is your application bar. For the PC, a lot of the stuff for the application bar appears here in this menu bar as well. Over to the left-hand side, we have the Tools panel. The Tools panel is going to be one of your best friends. It's where you have directions for just about everything in InDesign. We have here, right below the menu bar, we have the Control panel. The Control panel varies from tool to tool. So sometimes you'll know something used to be here, but you can't see it now. It's probably because you had a different tool selected. And then over here we have what's called the panels. These are different types of tools that allow us to do a variety of different tasks in InDesign. Let's go ahead and talk more about the Tools panel. The Tools panel gives us a lot of different options, and it has several that are hidden. If you look at these little tiny triangles over in the corner, right hand side, and hold, it will give you the different tools that are hidden underneath. So sometimes you'll be looking for something, you can't find it. Check underneath the other panels. You'll also notice that InDesign is really good at giving you tool tips and tool names, so you know that you're grabbing the right one as you go, which is kind of wonderful. All right, let's go ahead and choose our text tool. If we choose our text tool, notice that my entire control bar up here completely changed and gave me a whole bunch of different options. This is where it lets me control size and the style and the typeface itself. As we get more into typography, we'll get into all these different buttons and things, but there's a lot of different types of controls that you can play with. Alright, how about if I put the ellipse tool? Or if I hold it, I get the rectangle tool, depending on which one you were using last. This allows me to create a rectangle frame. In InDesign, all the objects have to live in some type of container. Frames are containers. You can use them for images pretty easily as placeholders, whereas a rectangle itself is not necessarily a place to put your photos into. This will make more sense as we go along. Alright, some things you can do with the Tools panel. If you hit these double arrows right here, you can actually shrink it to 2 columns. I like them as one because I know them in order this way, but it's totally up to you as to how you're going to do it. You can also, if you grab the dotted bars here at the top, pull that Tools panel totally off. If you want to put it somewhere else, maybe you like it over here. I am used to using it over here, so I'm going to put it back. Notice how I got a blue line when I'm holding my panel next to my Tools bar next to the side. If I do that, it's automatically going to dock it over there for me. Let's go over here and look at our panels on this right-hand side. You'll notice if I hover over this divider bar, I get a double-ended arrow. If I click and hold, that allows me to expand or collapse those different panels. Eventually you learn what all these different icons mean and you can use it tucked in. For our purposes, we'll leave it pulled out for now. If you're working on a laptop, a lot of times you want to collapse these panels as much as possible so you have as much visible real estate as possible. Alright, so let's talk about some of our other options. And the book is going to go into several more of these as we go. I want to go ahead and take a look at the Pages panel. The Pages panel is the one that allows us to look at different pages within the document. If you don't have it over here on the side, go ahead and go to Window, come down here to Pages and turn it on. So with the Pages document, we can see our masters, which we're going to set up later for our magazine, and we can see the pages in that document. Of course, Adobe gives us 15 ways to do everything, so you have the option to control and go through pages right here on the bottom by using your back and forth arrows. If you have a 16-page document, 100-page document, going through arrows is probably going to take you forever. I like to use the Pages panel over here. And you can collapse and expand that panel as well, depending on how big you want it to be. Alright, so we will learn what all of these different panels do as we go along. Let's go back to the Tools panel real quick. If you note, if you point at one of the tools, you'll get a letter in parentheses. That letter in parentheses is actually the keyboard shortcut. So if I want to be on selection and I want to go to text without having to grab my mouse and go over to the text tool, I can hit T on the keyboard and automatically be put into my text tool, and I can start typing in those text boxes. Alright, what are a few other things we want to look at? I'm going to go back to my selection tool. If we go up here to the top, we have one called View Options. View Options lets us see things like rulers. We like to see the rulers because it makes it easier to measure things. It lets us see guides. We can create guides to help us make sure we get things straight that are non-printing. We can also see grids. I like to see hidden characters. Hidden characters lets you see where you've got extra carriage returns and things like that. Now you'll notice if I'm clicked off in my pasteboard, the pasteboard is the area around, I don't see a lot of stuff going on. That's because my screen mode, which is the second button over on the top of the menu bar, is in preview, which means show me what it would look like without any of the tools on. It's not a good practice to design in preview mode because you don't necessarily see what you're doing. I like to design in normal. So in normal, now that I turned hidden characters on, I see all these paragraphs returns. I can see where I have spaces. I can see where the guides are. So it makes it a lot easier for you to understand what is going on in your publication itself. Alright, so the book is going to go through a lot of things about how to rearrange and customize panels. We've talked about part of that, how you can bring them out. Once you're done using it, you can use these menu bars up above that look like the hamburger that are going to give you a whole bunch more options. So, as I was telling you, there's always 10,000 ways to do one thing. You can close it and expand it by hitting these double arrows. You can close it all the way, which is going to make it go away. So if you want it back again, you'll have to go up to Window. Or I like to bring it over here, turn the blue line on, and dock it so that panels that I know I'm going to be using frequently, I dock over here on the side. It makes it a lot easier. There are different ways to customize the workspace depending on what you're doing. I generally don't very often create my own custom workspace, but it's totally up to you. Let's go back to our Pages panel. And when I click Pages, I got Layers, I got Links, and I have Pages. I want to go ahead and go to my first page. So I want to be able to see more or less of this document. If I do Control Plus, that will let me zoom in. And I can tell how much I am zoomed in by looking up here at the tab. So right now I'm looking at it at 800%. That's something to pay attention to because sometimes you'll be looking at an image and you think it's beautiful and then you find out that it's really, really tiny and is not going to work in your document. Or I can do Control minus in order to zoom out. You also have your options. You have a zoom tool, which the plus will help you zoom in. If you hit Alt and zoom, you'll zoom out. And of course there's one more way to do it, which is View and zoom in and out there. I like to do Fit Spread in Window, which means show me both my pages side by side in my window. In this one, it's a postcard. We are seeing both sides separately. We don't necessarily have two pages side by side, so it doesn't necessarily affect this one as much. Alright, so we also have context menus. Let's go back to my selection tool. I'm going to go ahead and click on my bird. I know my bird is selected because it's got the squares around it. If I right click, I get all of these different context menus. Once again, those change depending on what you're looking for. Of course, anything that's in a context menu is also in your control bars, it's in your toolbars, it's lots of other places as well. I just like the right click because it usually is faster for me. Alright, so once you've gone through the entire assignment, you're going to go through and submit. You didn't do a lot, but I want you to practice anyway. We're going to File, Package. We know we've got the fonts. We don't really have images that are linked this time. We're going to go ahead and tell it to package. We have to save. Okay, it's fine to save. I'm not worried about the instructions, but you can fill them out if you want to. I'm going to hit Continue. I want to do first initial, last name, InDesign, Classroom in a Book, Chapter 1. Instead of folder, I'm going to call it Packaged. That way I know which one to turn in. I want to make sure all these are selected as usual, and I'm going to go ahead and say Package. Then I'm going to go back out after I'm done to my flash drive. When Lesson 1 Packaged pops up, it's right here. We're going to go ahead and make sure we right click and hit Send to Compress Zipped Folder. And that's all for that one.